Hey guys, today we're going to be installing a Garrett GT2260S turbocharger on this 2023 Volkswagen Mark 8 GTI. We're going to take you through the process step by step, and without any further ado, let's get started. Really quick, just as a side note, before we get any further into the installation, you do not have to follow our precise order of steps to the dot. You can switch things up a little bit and still achieve similar end results. First step after getting the car slightly elevated will be the removal of the intake system. This process can vary slightly depending on the intake you have installed. It's now time to remove the charge pipe and coupler. Our car has the upgraded APR one, which you can find on our website. At this point we are removing the two bolts holding the PCV hose to the compressor side of the factory turbocharger. Next we are disconnecting the negative battery terminal prior to unplugging anything from the engine harness. After unplugging the diverter valve, we are going to remove the turbocharger V-band clamp, which is secured by a single bolt. We are now going to remove the upstream oxygen sensor and undo the harness from the turbocharger heat shield. Before we can lift the vehicle and remove the downpipe from underneath, we need to remove the bolt that attaches the downpipe to the engine block. This can be a little bit tricky, especially on the factory downpipe with the larger catalytic converter, but once the downpipe is detached from the block, you can use a small flathead or equivalent to separate the downpipe from the turbocharger turbine housing. It's now time to detach the downstream oxygen sensor harness from its various mounting points along the firewall and unplug it from the engine harness. We are now ready to go underneath the vehicle. In order to remove the downpipe, we must first unbolt the factory tunnel brace and then loosen the catback exhaust clamp, as well as the mounting bracket. Once done, you should be able to fish out your downpipe. However, additional steps for extra clearance may be required if you still have your large factory downpipe. Next, it's time to remove the factory heat shield from the turbo. It's secured by a single nut on top of the turbocharger, as well as 3 additional bolts and nuts on the back side of the cylinder head. At this point, we are going to unplug the wastegate from the engine harness and remove the triple square bolt that is securing the oil return line to the bottom of the turbocharger with the help of various extensions. We are now going to remove the additional triple square that is securing the backside coolant line to the turbocharger. In the next step, we'll be disconnecting various ignition components such as our coil packs, fueling components such as a high pressure fuel pump, and other electrical connectors so that we can move the engine harness out of the way. We are now going to disconnect the PCV line from earlier from the engine side and fish it out of the way. Now we will remove the triple square bolt that is securing the front coolant line of the turbocharger. Once removed, we will slowly push out the line with the help of some low profile screwdrivers. Please note that coolant will start to run out immediately, so we recommend placing a fluid catcher or equivalent underneath the vehicle if you want to avoid making a mess on the ground. We can now remove the rear coolant line from the turbocharger by prying it out evenly. We will then remove the oil feed line on top of the turbocharger by first removing the bolt securing it and then by prying it out of place with, once again, the help of a small low profile screwdriver or equivalent. Last but not least, we are going to remove the oil return line at the bottom of the turbocharger by hand. Before we can undo the 4 nuts that secure the turbocharger to the cylinder head, we need to first remove these locking shims. We will not be reusing them, so it's okay if they get a little bit mangled up during removal. In order to give us a little bit more clearance, we will be removing the exhaust camshaft variable valve timing solenoids, which are held in by a single Torx bolt each. One additional step we took was loosening this coolant line and moving it out of the way in order to avoid snagging it during turbocharger removal and installation. With the turbocharger removed, we took a couple of shots showcasing the factory Garrett next to the new GT2260S replacement. The much larger compressor housing and inducer size were immediately apparent to the naked eye. This GTI is about to get some serious flow. It is now time to prep the turbocharger for install. We always like to apply some of Liquimoly's turbocharger additive prior to installation, but alternatively you can also use engine oil. Reinstallation is more or less the removal process in reverse. We will, however, continue giving a couple of pointers here and there to make the process a little bit easier. The coolant and oil return lines can be a little tricky to put back on, especially after replacing the O-rings. You have to mostly go by feel, but using a little bit of lubricant on the seals makes seating the lines a lot easier. When tightening down the ground wires for the ignition coils, use a low-profile 10mm wrench to counterhold the studs in order to avoid stripping the threads of the aluminum cam cradle. By far, the trickiest part of reassembly is reinstalling the PCV line. It can be a pain, but we found that first mounting the line to the compressor housing with the mounting bolts left loose, and then connecting the line to the engine side with the use of a small pray bar or a trim tool was the most effective way to go about it. This can be frustrating, so be patient and persistent. We are going to be changing the oil as well in order to provide the journal bearings of the Garrett with clean and uncontaminated initial lubrication for the break-in. We are also stepping up to a heavier oil and opted for Liquimoli Leichtlauf 5W40 as well as Liquimoli Ceratec as our hyperlubricant additive. It's almost time to fire her up. However, prior to initial startup, we like to prime the turbocharger bearing system by cranking the car a couple of times with the coil packs unplugged.